Hi everyone, welcome back to KG Graves. We're at St John the Baptist Byzantine Catholic Cemetery in Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, USA. And we're here to visit the grave of the artist Andy Warhol. I hope you enjoyed the video.
This is the first sort of major series of self-portraits for quite a long time. What prompted this one?
I ran out of ideas.
But the one thing Warhol has not been short of is ideas. He's generated enough critical comment to fell a forest or two, having first shocked the art world in 1962 with his images of Campbell's soup tins.
I should have still been painting it. It would have been a better thing.
Really?
Yeah. Then somebody can just, it'd be like a store and they just come in and ask you for a can of soup and that was just the easiest way to do something. Because everybody paints the same picture over and over again anyway, so.
So you could have stuck with the soup tins and the Brillo boxes?
Well, just a soup can.
What was the interest to you then in that Campbell's soup tin? What gave you the idea of doing that?
Oh, I used to eat it every day. I still do, so.
After the soup cans came a series of Warholized photographs of leading rock and movie figures, notably Elvis Presley. And again proving that he had a gift for selecting his images, that other screen immortal Marilyn Monroe. And always concerned with the grocery store, another American archetype, the Coke bottle. How much do you think of your success as an artist, probably the best known in the world at the moment, is as a result of your own personal image, yourself as a work of art?
Well, that's what everybody says. No, I just do whatever I do, just to get by.
Andy Warhol was born Andrew Warhol Jr. on the 6th of August 1928 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, USA, to parents Andrew Sr. and Julia nee Zavaka. He was an American visual artist, film director and producer. He was the youngest of 4 children, having 2 brothers, Paul and John, and a sister, Maria, who died in infancy. When I started to research Andy, I didn't realise how much information there was about him, and far too much to cover here. So what I want to do is try and pick up on certain interesting points about his life. In 1912, Andy's father emigrated to the United States and found work in a coal mine. His wife joined him 9 years later in 1921. The family lived in the Oakland neighbourhood of Pittsburgh. At the age of 8, Andy had the streptococcal infection that led to scarlet fever. At times, he was confined to bed and made to remain home from school. He would spend these days drawing, creating scrapbooks from Hollywood magazines, and cutting out images from comic books that his mother bought him. He also enjoyed using the family's Kodak Baby Brownie special camera. And after noticing his passion for photography, his father and brothers built him a darkroom in the basement for him. When Andy started art classes at Holmes School in 1937, his art teacher saw his potential and got him admitted to Saturday drawing lessons at the Carnegie Institute in Pittsburgh. In 1942, when Andy was 14, his father died after drinking contaminated water from a coal mine in West Virginia. Andy excelled in school and won a Scholastic Art and Writing Award. After graduating from Shenley High School in 1945, he enrolled at the Carnegie Institute of Technology in Pittsburgh, where he studied commercial art. He also served as art director of the student art magazine, Carno, illustrating a cover in 1948 and a 4-page interior illustration in 1949. These are believed to be his first 2 published artworks. He earned a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Pictorial Design in 1949. Andy graduated in June 1949 and moved to New York City. He went to see Tina Fredericks, the art director of Glamour magazine. His career as a commercial artist began when she commissioned him to draw shoes for an advertisement. Gallerist Alexander Iolas is credited with discovering Andy. He organised his first solo exhibition, Andy Warhol 15 Drawings, based on the writings of Truman Capote, at the Hugo Gallery in New York in 1952. In 1955, he began designing advertisements for a shoe manufacturer. In 1956, Andy was included in a group exhibition at the Museum of Modern Art in New York. That year, he travelled around the world studying art and culture in several countries. While in Kyoto, Japan, he drew a stylized portrait of business tycoon Madame Helena Rubinstein. He began to sketch ornate footwear as a hobby. He designed whimsical shoes that were embellished with gold leaf, and each represented a famous person. They sold for between $50 to $225 a piece when they were exhibited at the Bodley Gallery in New York in 1957. Using prints by Edward Wolowich, who Andy later called his first boyfriend, the photographs would undergo a subtle transformation during his often cursory tracing of contours and hatching of shadows. With the rapid expansion of the record industry, RCA Records hired Andy to design album covers and promotional materials. He was also working with high-end advertising clients such as Tiffany & Co. by the late 1950s. In 1960, Andy purchased a townhouse at 1342 Lexington Avenue in the Carnegie Hall neighborhood of Manhattan, which he also used as his art studio. In April 1961, his pop paintings were exhibited for the first time in the window display of the Bonwit Teller department store on Fifth Avenue. 5 paintings based on comic strips and newspaper ads served as the backdrop for mannequins wearing spring dresses. In May 1962, Andy was featured in an article in Time with his painting Big Campbell's Soup Can with Can Opener Vegetable, which initiated his most sustained motif, the Campbell's Soup Can. That painting became his first to be shown in a museum when it was exhibited at the Wadsworth Atheneum in Hartford in July. On the 9th of July, his exhibition opened at the Ferris Gallery in Los Angeles with Campbell's Soup Cans, marking his West Coast debut of pop art. In November 1962, he had an exhibition at Eleanor Ward's Stable Gallery in New York. The exhibit included the works Gold Marilyn, 8 of the classic Marilyn series. In 1963, Andy formed the Drudds, a short-lived avant-garde noise band that included notable figures from New York. In January 1963, Andy rented his first studio, an old firehouse at 159 East 87th Street, where he created his Elvis series, which included 8 Elvises and Triple Elvis. These portraits, along with a series of Elizabeth Taylor portraits, were shown at his second exhibition at the Ferris Gallery in Los Angeles. Later that year, he relocated his studio to East 47th Street, which would turn into The Factory. The Factory became a popular gathering spot for a wide range of artists, writers, musicians and underground celebrities. Andy designed a $12 paper shopping bag, plain white with a red Campbell's soup can. His painting of a can of Campbell's soup cost $1,500, while each autographed can sold for 3 for $18, $6.50 each. The exhibit was one of the first mass events that directly confronted the general public with both pop art and the perennial question of what art is. In November 1964, Andy's first Flowers series exhibited at the Leo Castelli Gallery in New York. In May 1965, His second Flowers series, which had more sizes and colour variation than the previous one, was shown at the Galerie Iliana Sonnabend in Paris. During this trip, Andy announced that he would be retiring from painting to focus on film. The experimental rock group, the Velvet Underground, was taken on by Andy around the end of 1965. In his capacity as their manager, he included them as a key component of his Exploding Plastic Inevitable multimedia performances in 1966 and 1967, and he funded their debut album, The Velvet Underground and Nico, also 1967. He intended to present the film Chelsea Girls 1966 at the 1967 Cannes Film Festival, but it wasn't shown because the festival authorities explained that the film was too long and there were technical problems. To finance his film productions, Andy began going to college lecture tours, where he screened some of the underground films and answered audience questions. In February 1968, Andy's first solo museum exhibition was mounted at the Moderna Museet in Stockholm. On the 3rd of June 1968, radical feminist writer Valerie Solanas shot Andy and Mario Amaya, art critic and curator at the factory. Solanas had been a marginal figure in the factory scene before the shooting. She authorised the Scum Manifesto, SCUM, a separatist feminist tract that advocated the elimination of men, and appeared in Andy's film I, a Man, 1967. Amaya received only minor injuries and was released from the hospital later the same day. Andy, however, was seriously wounded by the attack and barely survived, remaining in hospital for nearly 2 months. Solanas turned herself into the police a few hours after the attack and said that Andy had too much control over my life. She was subsequently diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and eventually sentenced to 3 years in prison. Jed Johnson, an assistant who was at the factory during the shooting, visited Andy daily during his hospitalisation, and the two developed an intimate relationship. Johnson moved in with Andy shortly after he was discharged from the hospital to help him recuperate and take care of his ailing mother, Julia Warhol. The assassination attempt had a profound effect on his life and art. He had physical effects for the rest of his life, including being required to wear a surgical corset. The factory became more regulated, and Andy focused on making it a business enterprise. In September 1968, he attended a party to celebrate the completion of the film Midnight Cowboy. In the film, there was a party scene featuring members of the factory that was filmed during Andy's hospitalisation. He hosted a party at the factory for Nico's album, The Marble Index, in September. He also appeared on the cover of the 10th of November 1968 issue of the New York Times Magazine. After the release of the erotic film Blue Movie 1969, Andy rented the Fortune Theatre at 62 East 4th Street, where he screened male pornographic films from the 25th of June to the 5th of August 1969. The theatre was called Andy Warhol's Theatre, Boys to Adore Galore. Admission was $5. Compared to the success and the scandal of Andy's work in the 1960s, the early 1970s were much quieter years, as he became more entrepreneurial. He was generally regarded as quiet, shy, and a meticulous observer. In May 1971, his theatre production, Andy Warhol's Pork, opened at the La Marmot Experimental Theatre in New York. In August 1971, it was brought to the Roundhouse in London. He is credited with both the cover concept and photography for the Rolling Stones album Sticky Fingers 1971. He received a Grammy nomination for Best Album Cover at the 14th Annual Grammy Awards in 1972. Andy and his partner Jed Johnson got a dachshund puppy called Archie Warhol in November 1972. He doted on Archie and took him everywhere, to the studio, parties, restaurants, and on trips to Europe. He created portraits of Johnson, Archie, and Amos, a second dachshund they got a few years later. Between 1972 and 1973, he created a series of portraits of Chinese Communist leader Mao Zedong. In February 1974, some of the Mao portraits were installed at the Musée Galliera in Paris. In 1974, Andy and Johnson moved from his home on Lexington Avenue to a townhouse at 57 East 66th Street in Manhattan's Lenox Hill neighborhood. By this time, his public presence had increased significantly due to his attendance at parties. In 1974, he said, "I try to go around so often, so much, and try to go to every party so that they'll be bored with me and stop writing about me." Andy designed the sets for the Broadway musical Man on the Moon by John Phillips of the Mamas and Papas, which opened in January 1975 at the Little Theatre in New York. In May, he attended President Gerald Ford's state dinner at the White House. In September 1975, he went on the 8-city US book tour for his book The Philosophy of Andy Warhol, From A to B and Back Again, followed by stops in Italy, France and England. The opening of Studio 54 in 1977 ushered in a new era in New York City nightlife. Andy would often socialise at Studio 54 and take note of the drug-fuelled activities that his friends engaged in at parties. He began taking nude photographs of men in various poses and performing sexual acts, referred to as landscapes, for what became known as the Torsos and Sex Parties series. This caused tension in his relationship with Johnson, who did not approve. He said, "When Studio 54 opened, things changed with Andy. That was New York when it was at the height of its most decadent period, and I didn't take part. I never liked that scene. I was never comfortable. Andy was just wasting his time, and it was really upsetting. He just spent his time with the most ridiculous people." In 1979, Andy formed a publishing company, Andy Warhol Books, and released the book Exposures, which contained his photographs of famous friends and acquaintances. In November, he embarked on a 3-week book tour in the US. In 1981, Andy worked on a project that would create a travelling stage show called A No Man Show, with a life-sized animatronic robot in the exact image of him. The Andy Warhol robot would then be able to read his diaries as a theatrical production. He was quoted as saying, "I'd like to be a machine, wouldn't you?" In 1984, Vanity Fair commissioned Andy to produce a portrait of Prince to accompany an article that celebrated the success of Purple Rain and its accompanying movie. Referencing the many celebrity portraits produced by Andy across his career, Orange Prince 1984 was created using a similar composition to the Marilyn Flavors series of 1962, among some of his first celebrity portraits. In January 1987, he travelled to Milan for the opening of his last exhibition, Last Supper, at the Palazzo del Stelline. The next month he modelled with jazz musician Miles Davis for Koshin Sato's fashion show at the Tunnel in New York City on the 17th of February 1987. Andy was initially diagnosed with a gallstone in 1973, but adamantly rejected surgery because he feared hospitals. Dehydrated and unable to eat, he was in excruciating pain by February 1987. He was admitted to a New York hospital in Manhattan on the 20th of February, and he underwent gallbladder surgery the next day. His surgeon found his gallbladder on the verge of perforating and in danger of spilling the infection into his belly. Andy was awake and able to walk about, make phone calls and watch television when both of his doctors visited him following the 4-hour operation. His private nurse saw he was growing paler at 4:30 the following morning, but she did not call the hospital's cardiac arrest team until 5:45 a.m. when he was unresponsive and turning blue. He was pronounced dead at 6:31 a.m. from sudden cardiac arrhythmia at the age of 58. His brothers took his body back to Pittsburgh, where an open casket wake was held at the Thomas P. Cunsack Funeral Home. The solid bronze casket had gold-plated rails and white upholstery. He was dressed in a black cashmere suit, a paisley tie, and a platinum wig. He was laid out holding a small prayer book and a red rose. The funeral was held at the Holy Ghost Byzantine Catholic Church on Pittsburgh's north side on the 26th of February 1987, and he was buried in St. John the Baptist Byzantine Catholic Cemetery in Bethel Park, a south suburb of Pittsburgh, near his parents. Before the casket was lowered, his close friend and Interview magazine worker, Paige Powell, placed copies of the February and March issues and a bottle of beautiful eau de parfum by Estee Lauder into his grave. A memorial service for Andy was held at St. Patrick's Cathedral in Manhattan on the 1st of April 1987. It was attended by over 2,000 people, including Andy's collaborators and numerous celebrities such as Raquel Welch, Debbie Harry and Lisa Minnelli, among others. Eulogies were given by John Richardson and Yoko Ono. Following the memorial, there was a luncheon at the Diamond Horseshoe nightclub beneath the Paramount Hotel. In 1987, the New York State Health Department released a report that Andy was given inadequate care by the New York hospital from the time he was admitted until the hours before his death. These included not performing the appropriate tests prior to surgery, giving him antibiotics to which he may have experienced an allergic response, causing him to become overhydrated, and repeatedly failing to take accurate notes on his chart. In response, the hospital dismissed the private nurse who had been employed to take care of Andy and penalised the staff nurse who had been tasked with overseeing her. However, the hospital claimed that the nursing deficiencies were not significant enough to cause his death. In December 1991, Andy's family sued the hospital in the New York Supreme Court for inadequate care, saying that the arrhythmia was caused by improper care and water intoxication. The malpractice case was quickly settled out of court. Andy's family received an undisclosed sum of money. Prior to his surgery, doctors expected Andy to survive, though a re-evaluation of the case about 30 years after his death showed many indications that his surgery was in fact riskier than originally thought. It was widely reported at the time that he had died of a routine surgery, though when considering factors such as his age, a family history of gallbladder problems, his previous gunshot wound, and his medical state in the weeks leading up to the procedure, the potential risk of death following the surgery appeared to have been significant. During his career, he also made over 600 underground films, including short black and white screen test portraits of factory visitors. His early experimental films were silent observations of very typical daily life. 4 of his films in 1964 were Sleep, which monitors poet John Giorno sleeping for 6 hours. Kiss shows couples kissing. The film Eat consists of artist Robert Indiana eating a mushroom for 45 minutes. Then there is a 35-minute film, Blowjob, which is one continuous shot of the face of Deveron Bookwalter, supposedly receiving oral sex from poet Willard Mars. Andy's most popular and critically successful film was the previously mentioned Chelsea Girls 1966. In his personal life, Andy lived as a gay man before the gay liberation movement, but he often veiled his personal life in the press. In 1980, he proclaimed that he was still a virgin. Former interview editor Bob Colacello felt it was probably true. However, his assertion of virginity is contradicted by his hospital treatment in 1960 for a sexually transmitted disease. In 1994, the Andy Warhol Museum opened in Pittsburgh. It holds the largest collection of the artist's works in the world. I went and visited the museum after visiting his grave. In 2013, to honour his 85th anniversary of his birthday, the Andy Warhol Museum and EarthCam launched a collaborative project titled Figment, a live feed of his gravesite. The day I visited Andy's grave, I went online and viewed myself doing the filming. There is so much more to Andy Warhol. I was fascinated by his diversity of work in art, film, music, books, sexuality and so much more. I would suggest you look him up online for yourself. Let's see where his grave is located.
So there you have it, the grave of the famous artist Andy Warhol. As usual, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Thanks for watching, see you on the next one.
Rest in peace, Andy Warhol.